much. It looks like it would go back to Hassan. Good morning, colleagues. Greetings to Department of Health. So happy that this partnership of ours is stronger than before, and that you are still with us even this morning. I think when you were discussing your aha moments, that's when I actually got the gist of what you are about, and that was my aha moment as well. And you see, those of us who were there when we were doing our strategic planning in January or in early February, one of the things I referred to was the importance of the GET FET interface. Yeah. And that's what I've been saying in every district that have gone to when we're doing our districts, support districts. And to see this happening now makes me quite happy, because when you look at the performance of our system and you pick specific subjects, and when you are looking at our performance at the NSC level, there are certain clear patterns that you see. In order for us to get good results, we must perform well in mathematics, must perform well in maths lit, because those are compulsory subjects. Of course, we must perform well in languages, particularly home language. That's key. But as far as languages are concerned, we seem to have got the grip, and we seem not to be struggling there. Where we're struggling clearly is with maths and maths lit. Getting better in mathematical literacy, but in maths we are still, struggling. Struggling in the sense that the NDP says by 2030 we must increase the performance. The participation of our learners in mathematics. 2, we must pitch performance at least, the majority of our learners must pass mathematics, and all of them must pass at 50% at least. Now, currently in mathematics we're below 60%, and that's probably the only subject where we are below 60% in terms of our performance. In most of our subjects, we are in 70% and above, including physical science, for that matter. At least we're above 60%. And the learners, for example, who do physical science are the same learners who will be doing maths, definitely. So the learners who do well in physical science, as we are currently doing well, on an upward trajectory as far as physical science, are the same learners who are not doing well as far as mathematics. So that's our problem. Just by analyzing data, you see where one of our problems are. Then you go back, analyzing your data, you go back to the beginning. You go back to grade 1, you go back to the foundation phase, where we do literacy, which is the foundation of what will be maths in future. Now, you go back there, you look at our performance in numeracy. How are we doing? We are in fact in the 80s and 90s. Then you go to grade 2, no problem. You go to grade 3, no problem. Then you should start asking yourself, like Mr. Sebelani was saying, leaves me with more questions than an answer. That's the first question you should ask yourself. What happened and what happens where? Because we don't have any reason to worry. Grade 1, 80s, 90s, 2, same thing, 3, same thing. What happens and where along the line? Clearly, that's the first question, and that's where we should start trying to resolve our problem. Then you move on to grade 4, 5, 6. Not bad still, but you start seeing signs, but you don't get worried yet, because you're still in the 70s, 80s. There's no reason to worry at that point. 7, 8, 9, small signs start showing. Small signs start showing, but around 8, 9, they become clearer now. And what then happens, because of that, in grade 10, our learners have to choose subjects. Okay. Now, and that's another problem, because you see, when you choose subjects in grade 10, we would say to our learners, you choose also having a career that you have in mind as you choose. But that's grade 10. The question of the career should have been discussed in grade 1 or in grade 0. You see? So that it becomes a motivating factor from day 1 the learner gets there. That if I want to be a doctor, I have to be good and in numeracy in the foundation phase. In other words, from day 1 they get there, they must have some idea of what they want to be. It might change along the way, but grade 10 might be too late in terms of actually trying to align subjects with a career that Helena has in mind. But it doesn't stop us from doing it earlier than that. Now, when they choose in grade 10, then they choose Maths Lit, or teachers encourage them also to take Maths Lit, because already they're thinking about NSC results 3 years down the line. But sometimes they choose simply because of their performance in grade 9, and they feel that if they choose Maths Lit, they have a better chance of passing because of their performance in grade 9, in grade 8 and 9. So it's a great thing that when I get here, when I listen to what you discussed yesterday, I hear that you are talking grade 8 and 9 in the main, the transition grades to the FET phase. But of course, I think you get my point that we do have to start right from the from the foundation phase. Start there because most of the concepts, most of the things that learners end up struggling with are concepts that they wouldn't struggle with if they'd grasped them in earlier grades, and that's what FET teachers will tell you. But the question is, do they share their experience with their GET counterparts? And that is why this question of professional conversations that we are talking about is very important. That you have to have professional conversations that are interlinked, that link GET and FET, because it's one continuum, it's one system that we're dealing with. It's not like 2 departments or streams that have or phases that have a different destination and purpose as we engage in the educational journey. Now, I hear that you are talking about structures to implement this, and I'm sure you looked at I mean, you've got people that we have employed here who are CS GETs and CS FET, and we have specialists under them. And clearly, those professional conversations must start. And even at head office, the same thing must happen. I don't see Dr. Makatini and Moses, but the same thing must happen. The same thing must happen at head office, and so that synergy is there from the bottom, from the bottom up. But if I were to tell you what my view about certain things are, to me, the most important element of our work is the school. In terms of management, the most important layer of management are our SMTs. Of course, our principal is obvious. Then your circuit managers and your support staff in the form of subject advisors at district level. So certain things don't worry me. If schools are functioning, districts are functioning, I sleep peacefully. That's all. So I'm actually happy that we are here, and I'm talking to the right people. But all I'm asking is that vision of working together in our PLCs everywhere. I'm happy that it does look like it's going to be carried through, because that's really our key thing. That's, if anything, we want to ensure that we live as a legacy, and it is that. And I did say in our strategic planning session that it is something that we will realize properly with the class of 2035. We will have, we won't be part of the system, but I sure will be alive, and that I know. So with the class of 2036, for example, if we implement programs that we are discussing here, and if we work the way, as we are planning here now, the class of 2036 is not going to need to come to school on a Saturday and Sunday, to come to school during holidays. And that class will be different. And we'll be happy to see that, because that's the beginning. What we're doing now is the beginning of, we're looking at 40 years to come to see the real fruition. But the good thing is, in order to try and shorten that period, you are here looking at grade 8 and 9. And the advantage with grade 8 and 9 is that they are located in the same premises, in the same campus in our secondary school. So because you are looking at grade 8 and 9, it means we're not going to wait for 13 years. It actually means that we'll start seeing some of the results in about 5 years now, But if we then do this concurrently with going back to the foundation phase, of course, the years will keep decreasing, and we'll probably start seeing better results after 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, until after 14 years, around about 2035, 2036, you will see a situation where there won't be any need for, because these things are very expensive. We get good results, granted, but the question is at what cost financially, and at what cost to the learners in terms of being trained, where you find that by the time they pass NSC, and don't tell them this, if you follow them to university, by the time they pass NSC, some of them, depending on how democratic their home is, will say, Mom, I want to have a gap here. And then we'll say, no, not in my house. Yeah. But some will say, fine. you can rest. But you can imagine somebody who has been at school from the day the schools opened in January 2023, was attending Saturday classes, didn't have June holidays, didn't have September holidays, was in boot camps. And they are still there even now, some of us. Then in February, they are registering to start a degree at tertiary. There might be a disadvantage in terms of what we put our children through. They survive though, but some don't. Some don't. I'm sure you've heard or you have experienced situations where learners who do very well in NSC get to university, and because they are sort of so exhausted, they really struggle. And they wonder themselves, why am I struggling? I never struggled throughout school. But now suddenly things change when they get them. So we don't want the class of 20, 36, 37 to have the same problems when they get to tertiary. But all things begin with what we're doing now. And I'm so happy that we are talking 8, 9, but we have not forgotten, I know, from grade upwards, so that we shorten the period a bit at which we are going to start seeing the results of what we're doing. Colleagues, particularly district directors, I'm happy to see you here because it means that we have people who drive these programs there. With your CS, GET, CS, FET. And what we discuss here must always end up reflecting in our schools, in our staff rooms, because that is where it all happens. So we must never theorize, up there and then come up with big ideas, but they don't get manifested in the classroom, in how our schools function. So the concept that we're driving must be driven by our principals in how their teachers collaborate. You're going to see that we really mean it when we say these things. There are certain things that we'll try and introduce. For example, we were discussing with Mrs. Sagoza last time that GET will try and try and enhance our attitude towards it in terms of how important it is. For example, we want to work out a concept of introducing awards in primary schools. Almost same as your NSC awards, which you do annually. But next year, in January, when we announce our 90%, what we will do, we will invite. What we'll do, we will invite principals of primary schools where learners have done well. Where learners have done well at NSC. So we'll trace it back and say, this learner has done so well and was here at Men's High School, but is a product of Kondobuhle. So we invite the Men's High School principal and the Kondobuhle principal, with the aim of taking the whole thing of how important their work is at foundation phase back to their schools, so that also we have an interest, even though we're GT, we have an interest of how our products are progressing, throughout the system. And that's what we want to do, to try and drive home the fact that we want to. You saw last year what we did. We brought a great art learner That was the message. Although she's a famous celebrity, that's not the reason why. It's not the celebrity status. The issue was to say, this is where it all starts. And then we will continue showing that is important. And we want that to permeate to all our classrooms, in all our schools in the province. Thank you very much, colleagues.